一人の人間における偉大な人間革命は、やがて一国の宿命の転換をも成し遂げ、さらに全人類の宿命の転換をも可能にする。池田大作。人間革命。
It's so difficult for me to say why I love you so much. Is it your tenderness? Your sweet eyes? The voice of thunder and mind in the peace? Let me just pay a personal tribute saying why you changed my life. I would like to thank you for your brilliant existence in this world and the huge impact you have on me and in the lives of millions of other Brazilians and other peoples around the world. Daisaku Ikeda. Sensei. Your humanist philosophy influenced my own view of the world. So, this tribute is just to say I love you. You are truly one of the most important people in my life. Renato Araújo. Daisaku Ikeda was a prominent Buddhist thinker, advocate for peace, educator, writer, and poet. He served as the president of the Soka Gakkai, which means Society for the Creation of Values, a lay Buddhist organization in Japan from 1960 to 1979. He was the founding leader of Soka Gakkai International, SGI, one of the largest and most diverse global Buddhist communities focused on empowerment and social involvement for peace. Ikeda also established the Soka schools system and various international organizations dedicated to peace, culture, and education. Born in Tokyo on January 2, 1928, as the fifth of 8 siblings in a seaweed farming family, he experienced the harsh realities of World War II, including the loss of his oldest brother in Burma, which ignited his lifelong commitment to peace and addressing the root causes of conflict. In 1947, at 19, he was introduced to Buddhism through Josei Toda, 1900 to 1958, an educator and pacifist who led the Soka Gakkai, founded by Japanese educator Tsunsaburo Makaguchi, 1871 to 1944, in November 18, 1930. Toda had been imprisoned during the war alongside his mentor, Makaguchi. Both men remained steadfast in their beliefs despite facing oppression from military authorities enforcing state Shinto ideology, with Makaguchi ultimately dying in prison. Toda's resolve to stand up to the militarist regime impressed Ikeda, who would later write, "The words of a person who had suffered imprisonment for his convictions carried a special weight. I felt intuitively that I could trust him." In 1960, when Ikeda succeeded Josei Toda as president of the Soka Gakkai.
宅配ではございますが、本日より戸田門下生を代表して県議の公選を目指し、一歩前進への指揮を問わさせていただきます。申すまでもなく、我が創価学会は日蓮召集の信者の団体であります。したがって私どもは大御本尊様にお使い申し上げ、皇室承認芸家にご奉公申し上げることが学会の根本精神であると信じます。私はあくまで恩師戸田常生先生の教え、思想ば実践していく会長でいきたいと信じております。あと7年間で300万所帯の釈福をしようなと仰せになられたことが私の頭脳にあびりついております。300万所帯の達成、すなわち恩師戸田常生先生の7回忌のその年いっぱいまでに断固として楽しく、そして仲良くたくましく300万所帯の遂行を成し遂げたいと思う次第なんでございます。
Happiness. Harmony. strength and determination. What powerful words! What wonderful figure! This reminds me of one of the most impressive teachings learned from your disciples in the city of Kansai, which is the Kansai spirit. This teaching made such a great impression on me that I would like to express it here in my own voice.
関西魂とは、負けじ魂である、不屈の魂である、否定の魂である、団結の魂である、上昇の魂である。故に、脈々と受け継がれている関西魂こそ、学会にの宝なのだ。
My mother, which was his strongest disciple that I knew, used to say that I started singing Japanese songs when I was just 3 years old. And the song I loved most was, and I must say still is, Ningwon Kakumam no Yuda. He visited Brazil 4 times, in 1960, 1966, 1984, and 1993. His visit in 1974 was cancelled due to the political tensions of the military dictatorship in the country. During the political opening and hopeful democracy in the country, I was present at the festival we organized for him in 1984 at the Ibirapura Gymnasium, after a long wait of 13 years. My father was on the panel, and my mother was dancing. Soon, I would have the opportunity to study and play the clarinet for the same song we sang 2 years earlier. This is me in the clarinet. And my brother Fabio in saxophone, playing Thank You Very Much, Sensei. Following his renowned address at the Brazilian Literary Association in Rio de Janeiro, titled The Dawn of Hope for Universal Civilization, Ikeda was appointed as a corresponding member of this association, remaining the only Oriental to hold a position within the institution. In the occasion he said, "I am one of those who believe that to achieve harmony and integration within diversity, aiming to explore the horizons of universal civilization, the weight and importance of Brazilian culture are invaluable. It also seems evident to me that the ethnic democracy of Brazilian society, a virtue recognized worldwide, is a historical treasure of humanity." This was said at a time when few recognized the value of this treasure, the impressive cultural diversity of Brazil. Regarding the reference to Guimarães Rosa, our great writer from Minas Gerais who so enchanted the poet Raquel de Queiroz, Ikeda, with astonishing insight, emphasized that the saga of the Jagunço Riabaldo, through the values of the primitive world, produced in me an effect similar to that of the beautifully painted steep mountains in perspective. The poet and one of the most important Brazilian author Raquel de Queiroz, an esteemed member of the association, attended the inauguration ceremony and emphasized how profoundly Ikeda's speech had impacted her. I don't know anyone who has used his, Guimarães Rosa's, words in such a careful way. His literature is considered one of the most complex in Brazil in terms of comprehension, she explained. The next day, the Brazilian Philharmonic Orchestra of Ikeda Humanism presented the work Sounds of Innovations, composed by pianist and composer Amaral Vieira, who was also the technical director of the group. 1 year earlier, besides I played in the Sun Orchestra at the time, I had the opportunity to perform with the Philharmonic Orchestra of Ikeda Humanism at ECO 92, the environmental conference held by the United Nations in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. In this concert I have the happiness to play with wonderful musicians like Mario Lucio Marquez and be conducted by Amaral Vieira. All of Ikeda-sensei's life leading Soka Gakkai was focused on peace, humanism, and world justice. I knew, of course, about the dozens of criticisms directed at him, mostly lies or unbalanced opinions. One of the most unsettling criticisms was the Western ideology of the separation of religion and state, and the cult of personality surrounding him. However, regarding this last opinion, I never strayed from my ideals, which Ikeda certainly understood in relation to the concept of muga, or anatman in Sanskrit. The philosopher Nagarjuna argued that the notion of a self is tied to personal identity, along with related ideas of pride, selfishness, and a sense of psychophysical individuality. Nagarjuna rejected the existence of both self-nature and other nature, emphasizing that true knowledge involves understanding emptiness. Those who have not distanced themselves from the belief in personal identity, whether in themselves or others, through the concept of self remain in a state of avidya, ignorance. Should ignorance, as well as the idolization of personalities in Western traditions, be attributed primarily to those who are idolized? Common people like us want to protect those who have lifted us from nothing and treat us proudly as fellow humans. From my own experience, the so-called cult of personality surrounding Ikeda, as viewed by outsiders, was merely an affectionate understanding of the oneness of mentor and disciple as seen by insiders. He said, diplomacy should be undertaken by the politicians. But we are all human, we share a common humanity which is the same whether you are Russian or Chinese. It is important to be able to share thoughts sincerely about such issues as peace, education, the world. Otherwise, the discussion becomes purely political, a matter of power, of who's weak and who's strong. Somehow we have to break this destructive cycle. We celebrate your life, beloved mentor. Or Lion King, how we love to call you. In reply to Kyo, Daishonin states, the Lion King is said to advance 3 steps, then gather himself to spring, unleashing the same power whether he traps a tiny ant or attacks a fierce animal. Under his leadership, Buddhism reached approximately 13 million members in Japan. 12 million members in 192 countries and territories worldwide. Following the spirit of Makaguchi and Toda, he promoted efforts for peace, culture and education throughout the world for almost 80 years. He developed and expanded the Soka school system, which now includes preschools and universities, the Minnan Concert Association and the Fuji Art Museum in Tokyo. In addition to the 12 volumes of his exceptional Human Revolution and the impressive 30 volumes of the New Human Revolution, Daisaku Ikeda Sensei wrote 21 other books. Among which I will mention 3 that impacted me when I read them when I was 18 years old, Choose Life, Dialogue with Arnold Toynbee, Human Rights in the 21st Century, Dialogue with Ostragesilo de Athade, and lecture on the chapters Haben and Juria. At that time, when I was studying Japanese, my teacher Mrs. Hisako Hasebi would tell us, I want you to learn to read Ikeda Sensei's guidelines in the original. For me, my biggest challenge would be to read Ningen Kakumiai in the original and also to be able to translate beautiful songs that accompanied my youthful days. That is how I owe to him the very existence of the Japanese section of this channel. Sensei, this tribute is just to say I love you. Renato Araujo.